All right, so I think let's start with the past, right? The fact that, I'm a kid that watched 99 and my life changed because of it. I didn't know that was happening. And I've had a lot of conversations over the years about, in terms of growth, right? Like we saw the pro league come in. There are so many former players that have lived through previous leagues and now we're into this NWSL era. But Brian, I want to start with you just in terms of, going back to those WUSA days and what still lives in your brain trying to get that league across the line and how you're able to bring that expertise to, this is such a different, 2025, we're
light years.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Well, let me take you back.
Take us back.
So before the 99 World Cup, the 2 years before, originally the tournament was supposed to be small stadiums, only northeastern part of the country, more like a regional situation. So that was there, and that was in like 96, 97. Then the powers that be, if you will, decided, Marla Messing, yes, a fantastic visionary woman, obviously very, very much understanding what needs to happen. Made it happen. Bigger stadiums, Soldier Field, Giant Stadium, Rose Bowl. And then we basically for 2 years went out to sell it. We, as in the players, were literally all over the place for the next 2 years. Hey, we're gonna have a tournament near your area. Do you wanna come? It was kind of like that. And so if you think of it from that point of view, and then when 99 came, we did our job well. So people showed up and we were like, oh God, okay, this is amazing. Now we gotta win this thing. And so when you look at it from that point, and that was a few years, and we go and we win it, and it's amazing. Obviously, dramatic in all senses of the word. Successful because we won it, and people showed up, and the entire country, all of a sudden, ooh, soccer, oh, women, oh, this is great, let me look. Then the interest from that created the interest in a new league. John Hendricks, who created Discovery Channel, and his buddies, basically, all the cable barons back at the time, got together and decided they want to try to start a league, and we talked to them and we started it. And so it was really like that was the line, that's how it happened. And it was literally inspired by the 99 win. So then all of a sudden we had a bunch of people who had deep pockets and big ideas and no plan. And
that's always good.
Yeah, well, yeah, when you look back on it, it's like, duh, but in the middle of it, it's like, ooh, this is fun, this is great. Like, he had daughters, they were gonna play soccer, and he was gonna own a team, and it was wonderful. And the fact that his buddies said yes was a miracle. This miracle after miracle after miracle happened to even get that going. And then we started, and we threw money in the air all over the place.
The league offices were like downtown New York.
Downtown New York, and maybe
room.
not the best place to have the headquarters, and maybe across the river would have been better, but nobody thought of it at the time. And we had I was on Atlanta, and our away opponent was staying at the Westin. I don't know if you know anything about Atlanta, but the Westin is really nice.
Probably like
the nicest of the nice, and not necessarily that they don't deserve it, but probably not the best way to start things. And so many examples of that. Yeah. But I will say, as a player, I loved it. Absolutely loved it, because back then we had residencies where we were stuck together for 6 months in this place and that place before major tournaments, and we didn't have a home. And now we had a home when I was in Atlanta, and I loved it. It was brand new, so it was fantastic.
When you started talking about 99, I realized I don't think anyone talks about the time that you guys went on strike before 99.
Yes, yes.
Is that ever just covered?
Take us back. Let's talk about it, because I think we talk more about the strike ahead of the 2000 Olympics, right? The after, in terms of, but I think before.
It was after 2004 when we were going to 2005.
There's so many strikes, Ally.
There were stages of striking that occurred, yes.
But I was on the youth national team, and these guys, I hadn't been called up ever to the first, or
at the time,
the senior team, and I think it was 98.
Yep.
And they reached out to all of us, like I think I was in maybe senior in high school or maybe going into college, And the US organization had reached out and said, hey, can you guys actually come play for us and fill in for our senior team? We're going to Australia. And you guys all got us on a call led by Julie Foudy and basically said, here's the landscape. This is why you guys cannot be strike breakers, essentially. This is what we're fighting for.
Yeah.
And so that, I actually forget about that.
Yeah.
And we all decided, I mean, I remember individually going, this is my chance to actually go and play and to prove that I belong here. And then going through that process of understanding, okay, here's why we stand together.
Yes.
And then in the end, we actually did go play, but it was because you guys said it's okay for you guys to go play.
Right.
And we went to Australia and played and actually won the tournament as a junior team, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that fascinates me about the history of soccer for women in the U.S., from there to where we are now, is this sort of tension between a scarcity mentality and an abundance mentality, and when you know it's time to grow and how you grow without fear of something being taken away tomorrow, because that is also part of the history. Right. Leagues that have failed and shuttered. And so, Aly, I'm curious, as a player who is now a part owner of an NWSL team, what was it like to sort of watch these leagues start and fail, to watch the NWSL start and not fail and not fail and not fail and not fail, and know when it was time to start dreaming bigger with the confidence that it was not going to be taken away?
Yeah, I think I would answer it this way. The external market dynamics, I think, are what essentially gave me confidence to know that this is something that's sustainable. And growth that can actually accelerate, right? When we started Bay in 2020, essentially we're in COVID, the idea, it was quite clear to me, and my founders and I all have different viewpoints with the way that we came at founding Bay. So from my experience, I had just called, the 2019 Women's World Cup. We're in France, you saw this incredible energy around it. And I was watching essentially the momentum of the fan engagement, the fandom that was happening from 2015 to 2019. I was calling all the games for the NWSL at that point. And you could just sense that now all of these other variables that were kind of out of our control historically, which is our storytelling, our ability to reach our audience, the ability to consume our product through streaming, all of those barriers have been taken down, and they were growing rapidly. So now you have social media and people leveraging it in a very meaningful way. Not like when it was starting in 2009 when I retired, when Twitter just had basically become a thing.
Hashtag WPS chat.
Yes.
Nailed it.
They were like, you're going to tweet from the bench because you're injured. And I was like, tweet? What does that
I'm going to do what?
Yeah.
Is that a true story?
Absolutely. I was on
Tweeting
LA
from
Soul. Yeah.
The audacity, right?
And I mean, at that time was, not even thinking about the business perspective or why this mattered. And then, 10 years later, you're suddenly watching, wow, this is actually breaking down the traditional barriers that have limited the growth of our sport. So for me, that was like the biggest why, that I felt like there were so many market dynamics that were going to support it. I would say, when we look back at, the CEO of Sixth Street, who's our lead investor, right? He's got wisdom beyond all of us that are just getting into the business side of things. But his essentially, talking point was, this investment the data will lag. And I think that's what you're seeing, essentially, right? So now we're catching up with the data because we weren't mature in capturing it. We weren't mature in understanding it and disseminating it to the larger audiences. So now I think those two things, the confluence of the data catching up to the investment, is where now you're going to continue to see even more acceleration.
I want to talk to you. I feel like when players start playing, they don't necessarily anticipate, wow, I'm going to become an expert in all these business elements, right? Like, I feel like every player, maybe now until the current generation, I don't think there's that pressure on them to have that understanding of the business of a league and feel that pressure of, there is a league around me that I feel a responsibility to, and maybe there is that angle of, we were talking to Cory Bethune at Media Day, right? And she said, like, actually, I want to step into that role, however I can help grow this league. But now maybe there's a little bit more of an option. I'm just wondering if you can both speak to your growth in terms of the off the field piece of professional soccer in America.
When you ask that, do you mean the experience that I've
Like,
had,
under-
or what this next generation?
I think for
is
you,
thinking
just
through?
like learning about marketing and how it might work,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
you know, you talking about we're going out and selling the '99 World Cup, right? Like that's not something
Door
that
to
you,
door,
right? Like you're not.
Can you
That's
imagine
not
that?
your job.
Exactly. And I'm glad it's not now. I mean, you know. But yeah, so what's interesting for me to see from my perspective of being someone who literally was selling the game and now, bless you, watching it evolve and seeing that like literal launching, I feel like, finally, the information lagging, that's a great way to describe it because that's exactly what I've been seeing. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Now we're catching up. Just to see the evolution, and I always think about what's underneath that. Like what really has changed from the two iterations before and this one. And actually, I feel the changes come within this one, is the caliber of investor, caliber of owner, the person that you're talking about. He is a business-minded person. He's not a soccer dad thinking of it from the soccer dad brain. He's looking at it from a business point of view, and that is new in the last 3 to 5, maybe 7 at the most, a stretch years. It wasn't that way, in my opinion, until Michelle Kang was the first one to be that way, and then the Long family at KC as well, like thinking of it from a very, very different point of view. And Michelle had nothing to do with soccer anyway, and she came along and all of a sudden she's like getting in there and bringing her business acumen to it. And I think for me, that's fascinating. That's from my point of view. You go ahead, you're in it now, so.
For sure. I mean, the best thing that happened to me probably was going and doing my entrepreneurship and residency at Sixth Street. So for anyone that doesn't know, Sixth Street is our lead investor. It's a private equity firm. It's who Brian was just speaking about. One of the co-founder CEOs, Alan Waxman, he was essentially the guy that I went to and pitched Bay FC when we were in our Series A round. So we did a seed round of capital raise, and then we did Series A. And we were just laying out, here's like all the, here's all the reasons why that we think this is the right opportunity. And, he was already like 10 steps ahead of us and understanding, this makes a lot of sense. And so through that process, I went to do an entrepreneurship and residency at Sixth Street once we launched Bay. And the fundamentals of understanding the way a business, is run, and the way that you would analyze it as a PE firm, because remember, they have to grow it essentially to get their ROI, to understand the different levers that they focus on, and they kind of their ability to crowd out the noise and understand the basic drivers of the business is probably one of the most valuable lessons that I've gone through. And it's, across all their different portfolio companies, but you get to suddenly see things much clearer when you take a step back. And so I would just say to Croy, Bethune, those going through the process of understanding business right now will be so valuable to those players when they do matriculate out of soccer and out of their sporting career, because their work, everything that the intangibles you acquire from sports, that will translate to any field, but making sure that you have the underpinnings of a strong business foundation, that's where you can set yourself apart and show up to the room and be super confident in essentially what value you think you bring to the conversation.
I want to see if we can kind of tie together the conversation that we're having about the business and the evolution of the business of women's soccer with the sporting side, in the same way that we're trying to tie the history of women's soccer in the U.S. to what we're experiencing now. And I'm wondering...
That sounds hard.
It does. That's a big one. That's a big one.
This is peeking to how my brain works. Very multidimensional, very abstract, but we're going to try. And I guess I'm thinking about the work that it took to sort of lay the groundwork of the culture of women's soccer in the U.S., beginning with '99, I think we can say. And this expectation not only that the U.S. women's national team and anything that they are involved in and touch, which is also women's professional soccer, is going to have this standard of excellence, is not going to take no for an answer. Because it does seem that sort of energy has been infused into every iteration, really, of women's professional soccer, no matter how long it lasted. And we're starting to see that even on the sporting side, I think. I'm just curious how you've seen the game grow through the lens of the foundation built by the 99ers.
It's really interesting. I think that
They were tough, man.
we were tough.
Like,
we
they
had to
didn't
be.
welcome you. And,
Well, I welcomed you.
No,
I was open
joke.
armed
It
with
was-
everybody. Yeah.
That's part of it.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
like you're gonna earn your way in.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, you're gonna have to suffer a little bit.
Yeah.
And to dropped into the deep
fair.
end of the pool, and can
Yeah.
you swim? And can you swim with
With a-
one shark chewing
Yeah.
on your arm and still
Right.
swim? And because the standard was so high that if you couldn't handle it immediately, then you probably weren't going to really handle it later either. So the standard was super high. And as we went on about it, we understood. So I always come back to a very simple concept of a dual mandate. And I think that's the foundation of what we have now. One was win everything.
Yeah.
And Aly can vouch that that's literally what our standard
Yeah.
was, whether we wanted it that way or not. But
It's still kind of there.
It is.
Yeah.
It's still true, right?
Yeah.
Win everything.
Yeah.
And the second part of the mandate was, advance, women's value, abilities, visual, just relevance in the sporting landscape,
Yeah.
and financially, socially, all these different ways, and bring everything up.
Right.
So that's foundation, and I think that has obviously always been there for every floor that has been built since. And so when you say about making the things come together, I feel like they've always been
You've never been able
interwoven.
to just do
I
one job,
I
you've
have a
always
hard
had to be
time.
building something else.
I have the hard time pulling it apart. I think that you want to get to the point where you don't have to feel so much about the building part versus your playing part, and maybe want the playing to be bigger of a sphere than the other part. But right now, they got great momentum on the building part, and we have, I think, the fact that people like Aly and Brandy and other players that played at highest level are now on the business side. No worries. Cindy Parlow-Cone, let's not be,
Yeah.
at the helm, literally driving the bus down the road. That is part of why this is working, because the people who were in the middle fighting and making ourselves visible to everyone are now the ones in the C-suite, at the internship, now, pitching. Hello, did anybody hear what she said? She pitched it to them, and it worked. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm talking about. So it's that same ethos of excellence and evolution and, making it better that still exists in a different way. Now she's in an office doing it like she did it on the pitch. And I think we're all doing that in our different ways, from the 99ers to whatever season you won something. We are all still building that game together in different ways now.
So well said. I would add risk taking. And
Let's talk about World Sevens, because I wanna bring it up just in terms of, I think we've seen it on the WNBA side, right, where there is now WNBA Unrivaled has come in as a challenger property, and I don't even think we need to call it as a challenger, right? Like
that's right.
it's supplemental, right? And so I think World Sevens, the fact that it's going to be in the U.S. in only a matter of weeks, right?
December 5th to the 7th.
Just going to invite you all to Miami later.
Global.
But just this idea of there can be other ways to work within the game, right? And for me, World Sevens, one of the things that we talked about a lot is just the joy of that tournament, right? Like NWSL season, no offense, there's a lot of moments of joy. It's also a grind and a half for everyone.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. The Unrivaled is an incredible platform, and I think it's wonderful for the ecosystem. I think one just point of differentiation is that in Unrivaled, they're actually not leveraging the current club IP. And World Sevens we are.
Right.
And so you say supplemental, the way that we think about it at World Sevens is we're actually additive to the environment and the ecosystem, because we are essentially taking current investments, BFC, current IP, and now we're giving them another stage to grow their fan base and to monetize their brand. And we're also doing it for the players. So Unrivaled doing it for the players, but not necessarily the teams yet. Right. And I think both are incredible, but that's just one point of differentiation for us. So, from a foundational vantage point, what we benefit from in women's football is actually the tradition of football, that it is the global game. But I like to say that we're not beheld by the same constraints that the men's game would be. So that is where we can innovate, and that is where we can bring in, like, when you think back to professional men's sports, they've had this long timeline to build up their fan base and very slowly ramp up their business, right? We're doing it in a very condensed time frame. And if we're going to be successful at that, we do have to be innovative and providing these other extensions of our brands to grow the fan base as quickly as we need to sustain this insane growth. Like we're not even talking about the salary cap. Like to sustain the growth that is necessary, to stay in the conversation with the top men's brands in the world, right? So this is where World Sevens actually had an opportunity to come in and basically build a platform that is for that younger demographic. So I've got triplet 12-year-olds. And I want to know about your kids too, like what they consume this. I have triplet 12-year-olds and a 9-year-old daughter that's going to be 10. They consume sports differently. We know that. There's data to support it. Only 17% actually watch a full 90-minute 11v11 game in that millennial Gen Z category. Like that's a call to action for us to meet these fans in the moment where they are. And so with World Sevens, a 30-minute match, 15-minute halves, roll-on, roll-off substitutions, players can re-enter the match. You're getting 11 goals over 90 minutes. Like, do the math on that. That's essentially like American football, right? And that's the top sport in the United States. So we think it's hitting that sweet spot of you get the satisfaction of goals, but not too much where it's basketball, and I love basketball, but it's not like inundating your senses. And so that platform gets players out there. You see, like you said it, the joy. Yeah. These players were liberated. And what do you want more than a fan than to watch someone express themselves on the pitch and not feel like it's heavy and oppressive? That's why everyone fell in love with the 99 World Cup team. It was authentic celebration of the game. And just bringing that back is, I think, really critical for us in this growth stage where you can see both. You can see these players let loose, like let their personalities shine, but then also follow them back to their 11v11 where they're consistently performing week in and week out. And that's just how we view the platform as being additive. And actually bringing, one of the other unique elements is bringing together stakeholders across confederations to compete, which currently doesn't happen in the women's game.
Love it.
Yeah.
Did I nerd out too much on that one?
No, we love it.
It's fantastic.
This is a space for
Great.
nerding out. Space for nerds.
Yes.
That kind of expansion is itself a sign of growth too, right? Like being able to collaborate across confederations, being able to do things that aren't just that traditional 90 minutes. I'm curious what kinds of conversations you've each had with players, like current NWSL players, particularly maybe the younger ones, that help you sort of see these ties between generations and how much has grown. What kinds of things do they come to you with in terms of questions, aspirations, advice, concerns, that sort of give you those benchmarks about how much things have progressed?
I think for me, one of the newer roles that I've taken on as of late is truly making players understand the history, because a lot of times you have newer players that come into the fold and they're thinking that this has been this way all along, or they may know something about it, or they may not know something about it. And then when I, tell them stories about what we went through, and like we just discussed, their eyes open really wide and they're like, oh wow, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. And I feel like that helps continue to broaden that understanding of this is bigger than just me. And for me, that is something that's very important. I feel like that is my role. That is what I've taken on, and I'm happy and proud to do it. And I feel like history of an evolution of something this important is special to know. Like, you should understand the origination and where something came from. especially if you're essentially taking all your time, energy, effort into doing it currently.
And being able to implement, especially you, Aly, with Bay FC, like this training facility on Treasure Island, hosting this championship in an area, we'll say, city area that Meg and many of our colleagues at The Athletic have named the #1 city for women's sports.
Yes.
Love it.
Thank
Love
you.
it. Very good.
Thank you.
I could have told you that myself, but I'm glad that it is.
You checked your bank
codified now.
account, right?
Yes. But being able to implement the things that you have always wanted to see must be one of the most gratifying things.
It certainly is, and I would say that, to a little bit to Bri's point, it is our job to actually like push these players, and I think that I want to go back to a little bit on the players are so focused on themselves and training and making sure that they are in that starting lineup for the weekend, as they should be, that they sometimes aren't picking their head up and looking at the broader ecosystem and how they can contribute. And I still think there's a disconnect, and this goes back to even your earlier question with this younger generation, between how their actions can drive meaningful outputs for the business side. And so I do think it's our job to continue to educate them and help them understand that how these two things come together, and that all of their little decisions to show up or to promote are actually big movers over time and in the aggregate when more players do it. So I would just say that from some of these conversations with the players. As far as it relates to the Bay, I mean, I'm incredibly proud. I grew up, 10 miles actually, I know, because I used to be able, when I could run, I would run to my mom's house here, 10 miles south in Almaden, and could have gone anywhere in the country. Luckily, I was blessed enough, when I was recruited at college, and I chose Santa Clara University. And we have some of the best storied programs in women's football, I think, in the Bay, with Stanford. Santa Clara, Cal, San Jose State. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, winning national championships. And so to have, this great, I think, moment for the NWSL, to me, you guys tell me, you guys have covered this for longer than I have, I believe. This feels like the championship that is a turning point in the amount of stakeholders and energy and resources.
This week is, I was talking about this with a couple players who were at that 2013 NWSL Championship. You want to talk about two entirely different vibes.
Yeah.
It is.
Where was 2013?
Western New York, Salem Stadium, Portland Thorns versus Western New York.
Come a long way, baby.
The after party was at a bar next to the airport.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the, yeah. All right, thank you so much to the two of you for joining us. Incredible, and